Hello friends, how are you doing today? My name is Mary and this is Happily Ever Esch. So today I wanted to have a little bit of a chat with you guys. I have my Earl Grey tea and my kitty cat cup, though it is the Tazo Earl Grey tea and I usually drink Twinings and Twinings is better. I'm kind of sad about this. It's not as good as the Twinings one, but that's okay. Still going to enjoy it in my cat mug. But I just wanted to sit down and have a little bit of a casual chat with you guys. I haven't done just a chatty video like this, so we'll see how it goes. I'm a very, when I talk to people, affirmative person, and I also like to be affirmed when I'm talking and discussing things, and so, or, you know, to get feedback from the people I'm talking to. So this is a little weird, like having a discussion with the camera, like, which is what you're doing all the time, talking to the camera, but I feel like this is different. I don't know. Anyway, that is totally irrelevant to this video. I wanted to have a little discussion about ratings, kind of what I think about them. Are all ratings equal in my mind? So that kind of thing. So yeah, let's just hop on in and talk about it. So I never really thought about how I rated books in such a serious way until I started talking about them on the internet and putting my feelings out onto the internet for people to hear and discuss back with me. And so it's been interesting to kind of think about how I rate books and to think about how other people rate books. I remember, you know, when I was just a viewer, I would always want to hear like what someone gave a star rating. I thought that that was important. But the more that I sit down and do this and the more I think about it, I don't really know how important star ratings are, and I don't really know if they are something that I want to talk about in my videos. And I understand as humans we need categories, we categorize things in our mind, that's kind of how we process information, and it's a quick thing to say, oh, that person gave this book a 4 or 5 star, I have similar reading taste, you know, I'll probably like it. It's those quick judgments that are they're helpful as human beings, like that's a helpful thing. But I also think categorizing can be harmful, like in all different forms in our life, and I kind of have thought more about that with reading and how it's harmful, because it's, and not, maybe not harmful, but it's just so hard, like, to capture all the nuances of how you feel about a book in a star rating. And then there's some ratings that I'm like, I love that book, I want to give it 5 stars, but that 5 stars isn't the same as maybe another 5-star book. Like, for example, I gave 5 stars to The Vile Village by Lemony Snicket. This is a middle grade series. I absolutely love these books. I have a lot of nostalgia tied to them, and I think this middle grade book deserved every bit of the 5 stars that I gave it. But that is a totally different 5-star than, for example, North and South, which I just recently read and adored. Like, that Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events isn't even coming close to the nuance of the 5 stars that I gave this, that, you know, is a classic and has beautiful writing, and just the nuance of what it's talking about in the age that it was written, and just like everything. There's so much that goes into this 5-star, and I think that that book deserves every bit of 5-star. And like, for another example, I gave Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel 4 stars. Do I think that this book is better than Station 11 because I gave it an extra star? No, not really, but I think they do 2 completely different things. And so just thinking about that and thinking about like how my star ratings aren't always created equal, I guess, and I don't know, and I don't, like, I thought about that a long time about The Vile Village and giving it 5 stars, and like, for what this is, a middle grade series, and just all of the feelings that I have, like, I want to give it 5 stars, but obviously this is very different than a literary fiction novel or, you know, a classic 5-star. Also thinking about, like, changing ratings. There are lots of books that in the moment, you know, I want to give a really high rating. You've spent all this time reading a book and you have all those raw emotions, and sometimes you go back and you're like, wow, like, I really don't think that my reading experience was, a 4-star read, or oh, that book stuck with me a lot more. Like maybe I should bump the star rating up. Finish a book and you want to give it this high rating because you've given it all this time and it's so fresh and evocative at that moment. But looking back later, I don't think it makes that initial rating and those initial feelings any less real just because you're not there feeling them anymore. And so, should you even change readings? I don't know. I just think the more that I sit down and are really thinking about my feelings on books, the more I kind of realize how, much more goes into my feelings of a book than a rating. And there's also books that are really going to do those things to you, that are going to change you and make you think, that you don't necessarily have to like and want to rate highly. So for example, like I only on Goodreads rated Redeployment by Phil Clay, which is a short story collection I just read. I gave it like a mid rating. But there were so many things in that collection of short stories that made me think and moved me and has changed how I think about the war in the early 2000s. And so, I got so much more out of it than that mid rating that I gave it. So there's just so much more, I think, that goes into the reading experience, and it's been cool to kind of think through those things and be able to have a space to sit down and talk about books. And I also wanted to talk about choosing not to read books. And I think that's kind of what got me started thinking about this in the first place, was I read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, and I chose not to give that a rating. And I did that for a couple reasons, I think. When I just sat down and tried to put a stamp on that book, to put a star on that book, I couldn't. There's so much going on in that book. There's so many things being discussed, so many experiences that I will never have being a white woman who lives in rural Midwest America. Like, there's just so many things that Ta-Nehisi Coates talked about that I can read about, I can try to empathize with, but I'm never going to fully be able to grasp that. And so I'm so appreciative of the things that I learned and the things that book made me think about. But there's just no way that all of the things that book did and stirred up in me I could put a stamp on that. I felt the same way about Ruby by Cynthia Bond. That was a book that came out sometime last year, and it was nominated, I think, for the Bailey's Prize, and it got a lot of buzz. And that book deals with, I've never read a book that has been so hard to read in my life. I almost stopped reading it multiple times. It's a story about Ruby, who is a woman living in a southern town. It was in exactly sure when it was set, but I think between the 30s and the 60s. It's set in there sometime. And it's about Ruby, who had grew up in the small town, moved away to New York, and has now come back to the small town. It's about identity and race. It's about abuse. It has magical realism elements to it. It's a story about redemption and relationships with people, and it was beautiful at times, but it was so gruesome and so violent, and just every page is just ripping your heart out with things that this town and this woman have gone through. And it was just disturbing. But I understand like why Cynthia Bond did that. And Cynthia Bond actually works with homeless youth, and she does a lot of writing workshops. And a big point in this is, if someone lives through these gruesome and horrible and just inhumane things, then we should be able to listen to their stories, which is made very clear. Just I felt like that was such a clear struck such a clear chord with me, and just being like, I can't, but like, no, you can. And she ties this beautiful redemptive storyline in it that makes you want to keep going, and it was genius. But I couldn't put a rating on it. Like, it made me feel so many things. It made me just think about things in such a different way. But I also was just angry at it sometimes for the way that it talked about things, and just the things that I read sometimes, and or maybe not angry, but just so upset and kind of disturbed by it. So there was no rating that I was going to give that book that could properly express emotion. And so those are two very, I think, extreme books that really stirred up thought in me and just stirred up so many different emotions that I was like, I cannot categorize this with a star. Like, I just can't do it. And so that has spurred me on to think about the things I talked about earlier, about star ratings and about like the nuance of them, and about even talking about ratings and if that's a valuable thing to do on my channel. And just got me kind of thinking about all of those things, and I definitely think that they're useful categorization tools. Like, that's a useful thing, but also just thinking about books and reading and the experience of it being so much more. So those are just some thoughts that I've had about reading, and just it's been cool to have a different experience with books, and to think about them in a different way when you're doing it in front of people and sharing it with others in a more viewable way maybe. So I'd love to know what you think about ratings. If you have a channel, if having a channel has made you think differently about how you rate books, if you think ratings are valuable, why not? So just any thoughts that you would like to discuss, I would love to chat with you down in the comments. And I'd especially like if your opinions changed since you started reviewing books on BookTube or a blog or whatever. I'd love to know if that's been a change for you, or even if you don't, and it just watching BookTube maybe has made you kind of change your opinions. I just love to know. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you're having a great day, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.